Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Coming up, answers to your questions about Maryland's new medical cannabis industry. But first tonight, 4 times so far this month, drivers have collided with black bears, and not just in the remote parts of the state. Those 4 cases were all in the Baltimore metro area. Is something changing with the state's bear population? Joining us now from Garrett County is Harry Spiker, the Black Bear Project leader for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Harry, thank you for being with us. And is something changing out there?
Hi, Jeff. It's my pleasure. No, nothing's changing, really. I mean, the population has grown, but what's going on this time of year is dispersal of juvenile animals. So around about May and June, sows that would have had cubs about a year and a half ago, once they get to be about a year and a half, she'll kick them out and force them to go find a territory of their own. And unfortunately, sometimes they find themselves into some places where they don't get along real well, and that's what's happened here.
Have you seen numbers like that before in terms of vehicle accidents?
Well, we actually, over the last 5 years statewide, we average about 60 road kills a year. So we see the numbers, but this is a high number for down in the metro area, without a doubt. And I suspect what happened there is probably a litter of yearlings dispersed together. I suspect that's likely what happened, especially considering how close in time these particular events happened.
What's your best estimate of how many bears there are in the state of Maryland and where they are by county?
Yeah, what we consider our occupied bear range are our 4 western counties, so Garrett, Allegheny, Washington, and Frederick. Frederick would be the furthest east that we consider occupied. And we consider it occupied if we know there are sows giving birth to cubs there, because sows use the smaller home ranges. So as far as numbers go, right now we estimate about 2,200 adult and subadult bears. So basically that means 2,200 plus the cubs that might be out there.
So in the unoccupied counties, obviously we're seeing bears. How many counties have had, verified reports, and how many of them do you think have bears living there?
Well, the one that I think probably has bears living there that we don't have tagged as occupied yet is Montgomery County. We get so many sightings in the northwestern part of Montgomery County that I suspect they're there. We just haven't seen that sow with cubs yet. But as for the other counties, it's normal every year. We'll get sightings in Baltimore, Harford, Howard. Again, usually it's those dispersing juveniles that get kicked out in May or June. They're looking for a territory of their own. We usually catch quite a few sightings, reported to us, and then all of a sudden they disappear after wandering around a bit, and because they had moved off and found some better territory.
So how should drivers and residents in areas that aren't used to having bears around feel about this? I mean, are there reasons to be concerned?
Well, no more concern than what you would normally for deer vehicle collisions. So if you're normally alert at certain areas, wooded areas, there's certain areas people know where deer cross. There are usually signs up there. The bears are going to use the same areas typically. If they're moving through, they use the same terrain, same habitat. So I would just use the same caution. Just drive defensively, be aware of what's around there. And keep in mind, although bears can get very large, these bears that are dispersing are usually around 100 pounds. So it's not a 500-pound bear that's going to totally disable your vehicle.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about Maryland's bear population and how to handle a bear encounter, you can give us a call. We will have the number up on the screen. You could also tweet your questions. Twitter address is @MPT News. And you can also email us a question. The email address is livequestions@mpt.org. That's livequestions at mpt.org. So Harry, if we have a large bear population in the West, and they seem to be pushing east a little bit, does it mean that the western counties are basically full from the standpoint of the bears?
No, not necessarily. When those juveniles disperse, I mean, that's nature's way of keeping the population from inbreeding. We've had travel like this for decades, really. There's certainly more bears now, but we're nowhere near biological carrying capacity. If we got to that point, we'd see some things like lighter body weights, less productive females, things like that, and all of our indications. We monitor this bear population pretty closely, and all indications are that the population's healthy and still growing.
What's the history of the bear hunt in Maryland? I mean, there was a time when we didn't have that, and we've had it for, I guess, a little more than a decade now.
Yeah, I believe this year is actually going to be year 15, if my math is right. We started in 2004, and our goal with the bear hunt has been to continue to allow the population to spread, to grow, but at a slower rate than it had prior to the bear hunt. And that's effectively what's happened. One thing that we've changed 2 years ago, we actually opened up the two eastern counties, Washington and Frederick, to bear hunting. For the first 12 or 13 years, bear hunting was only allowed in Garrett and Allegheny counties. And in response to the population growth, we've gone ahead and opened it up to Washington and Frederick. And hunters haven't responded hugely. There's not been a lot of hunting pressure in those two counties yet. So very few bears harvested in that area. But I expect that'll change in coming years.
So how do you want citizens to interact with bears? If there's one in the area, maybe you're not used to it, particularly if maybe you have some livestock or garden or even cropland to defend. What's the state's advice?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeff. And really, the general rule of thumb is treat them the same as you would a strange dog. We don't want them comfortable around there. You want to give them space. Always allow a bear an escape route. If you see one traveling through your backyard, don't necessarily chase it, of course, but make some noise. Let them know they're not welcome there. And if you're in an area where you have bears, or maybe in the suburban corridor where bears seem to be passing through, then I recommend you take in your bird feeders and trash for a couple weeks, because they'll cause a bear to want to set up camp and hang out for a while. They're always looking for an easy meal, and bird feeders and trash seem to be the two big attractants.
Let's take a phone call from Bear Country in Baltimore County. This is Lewis. Lewis, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is the rise in the deer population, does that have anything to do with the black bear population, and would it grow until the numbers equal out?
All right, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught all of that out here, Jeff, but I think he asked why is the population growing and will it continue to grow? Is that right?
That and is it connected at all to the deer population, I think?
Oh, okay. No, the deer population's totally separate. So bears and deer, they're both doing their thing. The deer population statewide actually, on a statewide scale, has been stable the last several years, while the bear population's continuing to grow. And the bear population will continue to grow. We've had people in Western Maryland, living with bears for decades and decades, and bears have been here in Maryland since before the state was settled. So we have very few issues with them, really. These black bears have a lot of resources here, a lot of food resources, so they don't have to get aggressive or do things that some people picture. But yeah, I anticipate the population will continue to grow.
We did have that attack in Frederick County near the city of Frederick a couple of years ago.
We did.
It was pretty serious. What happened in that case?
It was a serious attack. That's while I'm knocking on wood, I'll state that that's Maryland's only bear attack in history. It happened a couple Novembers ago, 2 Novembers ago, and it was kind of the perfect storm of events for that type of thing to happen. First off, the person who was attacked was in a community where bears were used to being fed. So some people were feeding intentionally, and then there was a lot of natural food there as well. It happened in November at a time when bears are really trying to pack on the pounds to prepare for hibernation. And what happened is there were 2 dogs involved. There was a resident with one dog that was off leash, that was the neighbor's dog, and then her dog that was on leash, and she went outside at 9 o'clock at night in the dark, and there happened to be a sow with 3-year-old cubs right there feeding on acorns at the time. And the dogs, when we see this kind of thing happen throughout the eastern United States, almost always there are dogs present. Bears and dogs do not get along. And what happened is, the bear defended its cubs. Unfortunate for the woman, she was mauled, and she was severely injured. She has, since recovered, to the best of my knowledge. But again, that was just my advice in a situation like that. If you live in bear country, and I'll tell you, I do this for at my house for the skunks that pass by. Before you go outside, I turn an outside light on, and I rattle the doorknob so anything out there knows you're coming. Open the door and head on out. Like I say, that there have been bears in that neighborhood for decades, and this just happened to be one really unfortunate experience.
Let me get one email question before we go. Have bears been seen in the Gwynns Falls Forest area, Baltimore City and Baltimore County? Also, any confrontations between bears and people in these areas?
They have been seen in that area in the past, not the very recent past, but we have had them travel through that area in other years. And no, I don't believe any of these recent road strikes were in that general vicinity.
Harry Spiker of DNR joining us from Garrett County in Western Maryland. Sir, thank you for your time. And when we come back tonight, answers to your questions about medical marijuana. We will be right back.
I've always enjoyed reading ever since a young age, of course. Was always encouraged to read and to just kind of explore libraries and bookshelves wherever I end up.
We always had books, even going up from the Bernstein Bears. Growing up, books were always an asset, and that's what you did. Before you go to bed, someone comes in and reads you a book.
I always loved to read. It's always taken me someplace far, far away. Sometimes when I really get into a book, I become the character. Even if I'm not reading it, I think I'm the character.
I still read every chance I get and sort of relish the opportunity to have a night in or a good rainy day, I guess is my favorite, and have a cup of tea and read.
Vote now for your favorite book at mpt.org/Great American Read.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
We are the curious.
Wow!
The adventurous.
Oh!
Those venturing out for the first time.
And those who've never lost our sense of wonder.
Whoa. You seen this?
We are the hungry.
The strong.
I must be the greatest!
The joyful.
A happy little cloud.
We believe there is always more we can uncover.
More we can explore.
We believe in the capacity for goodness.
And the potential for greatness.
The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
PBS.
PBS.
Joining us now in the studio to update us on medical cannabis, Michael Bronfein, Chief Executive Officer of Curio Wellness, and Brian Sanderoff, Clinical Director and General Manager of the Curio Wellness Dispensary. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
What are we seeing so far? How long has the industry been operating, and what do you see in terms of demand?
The industry officially launched on December 1st. Curio was proud to be the first company to ship products across the state, and the program is going very, very well. Patient counts are far in excess of what we had ever estimated looking at other states and seeing how they would progress. I think the quality of the product is excellent. The variety of the product is excellent. Prices are now getting in line with what they ought to be, given the fact that the startups are kind of coming to an end and we're starting to get to steady state in operations and manufacturing and
prices
cultivation.
Are going up or down?
Going down materially. For example, vape cartridges that we were retailing for $89 when the program started are now retailing for $59.
Okay.
So it's a big reduction.
What are you seeing in the retail business?
The same. Everything has been amazing. People have been very receptive to it. I've been very surprised at the number of people that have been coming in to get medicine. And
let's talk about how it works. Does somebody just walk in the door and walk out with the product? How's it work?
First, you have to get signed up with the commission, and so you do that online as a patient or as a customer. You need 4 things: Social Security number, email address, a photograph, like a passport photo of yourself, and proof of Maryland residency.
Do you need somebody to actually prescribe it?
Once
or
you
recommend it, I think is the phrase.
Yeah, we don't prescribe it because it's still not federally legal, so it has to be recommended. So once you do get registered with the commission, which takes about 10 business days right now, you get your email back with your 16-digit number, then you go to a prescriber, you get certified, and then you can come to the dispensary.
How many people? Do we know how many are registered?
Yeah, there's about 43,000 last time I looked, which was a couple of weeks ago, which, just to give you a perspective, our initial estimate was 120,000 people after 5 years. We have 43,000 after about 8 months. So I think 2 things have occurred. One is I think the population has gotten a lot more comfortable with cannabis as a medicinal solution because it's become so prevalent, not just in Maryland, but in other cases. But secondarily, I think physicians are getting more comfortable, and so they're more willing to recommend their patients. Maryland has an excellent program in that we don't come between the patient and the physician. Some states do that. And so that sacred relationship is maintained, and so I think it's a lot easier for people to say, I haven't tried this in the past, but I'm prepared to try it now, and physicians are certainly participating.
But it's not all physicians, right? And it's not just physicians either.
No. Dentists can prescribe, nurse practitioners can recommend. So there's others who can recommend. I think podiatrists also can recommend. Well, probably, Jeff, the most interesting thing I've seen so far has been the age cohort. We are seeing a much older patient than we ever expected. We're seeing a lot.
We're wearing bell bottoms and stuff, right?
Well, no. We're wearing khakis and polo shirts. But you know, there's a lot of, let's say, plus 65, which is a much bigger cohort than we ever expected. And what's interesting is they really want to understand the medicine. They want to understand the medical and physiological aspects. And because they are, I guess, have time, they really want to be educated.
Do you know what their complaint is when somebody comes in for something, and we can get into with a variety of stuff? Right. Do you know if it's a backache or it's a cancer treatment?
In our dispensary, we do, because we ask that question. The first thing we want to know is what brings you in.
Why are you here?
And if somebody sits down with me, we talk about whether it's chronic pain, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I've dealt with patients that have MS and ALS and Parkinson's, all sorts of interesting cases.
Let's get to the phones. Montgomery County, this is Bobby. Thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm calling because I'd like to know how people who are experiencing secondhand smoke from people who are so-called having prescriptions for medical marijuana, and how can I protect my grandchildren from the secondhand smoke also that's coming from other people's apartments, where you share a wall with someone, because this is becoming a more increasing problem.
Wow.
For people in my senior building.
Bobby, thank you very much for the phone call on concerns about the safety of that smoke and then how you might deal with your neighbors.
Yeah. So not sure about the safety of the smoke. I don't know whether there's any science behind the idea of actually getting sort of that, what they used to call a contact high or whatever. One of the things that I like to stress with my patients is that there are a ton of other dosage forms for people to use. And even though there are people that get oils to vape or get flower to smoke, tablets, capsules, tinctures, elixirs, even topicals. And so if it were me, I might have a conversation with my neighbor saying, hey, maybe we can use a different dosage form, or maybe get you to use it outside or blow it towards the window instead of the wall.
So let's talk about the products. So the first thing you do is your company grows some plants.
Correct.
What happens after that?
Well, we grow everything organically in what we call hygienic cultivation chambers, so there are no pesticides. It's completely free of any outside agents. Once that flower is completed, it's then dried and cured in about a 3-week process. And after that point, it can either be sold as flower, or it goes to our processing manufacturing center, where we use CO2 extraction, which is the pharmaceutical grade extraction equipment, to extract it into an oil. And then we have pharmaceutical instruments that allow us to separate into its component parts. And from that, we then reformulate it into various products, whether it's pills, capsules, liquids, ointments, creams, you name it. We're making all those forms in kind of traditional dosage forms that are folks are comfortable with and traditionally have taken.
Is there anything that's surprised either of you in terms of where the demand is, whether it's the flower for people smoking it or creams or lotions, whatever?
Well, yes. I mean, again, under our original thoughts and forecasts, we thought in this first year of operation, somewhere between 80 and 90% of all of our sales would be flower, and only 10 to 20 would be manufactured products, because that was better known in the marketplace. As it's turned out, we're seeing pretty much a 50-50 use of manufactured products versus flower. And doctors are particularly focused on the manufactured products because they like the calibration and the specificity and the ability to say, I'm going to recommend exactly 100 milligrams, and you know your patient's going to get exactly 100 milligrams.
Let's grab a phone call. Howard County, this is William. William, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm in my 60s and had gone out on workman's compensation back in the 90s from a job accident, and all my injuries are osteo-related, meaning bone. And I've been taking opioids for probably 20, 30 years, and I don't know how I can make the transition because my pain clinic that I go to said if I tried it and it shows up in my P-test, which I have to do, even at my age, then I lose the opportunity to have opioids. Now, right now, opioids work for me, but even to try, if it shows up in my P-test, I'm done for.
Wow. So, William, thank you so much for calling. Best of luck to you. Thoughts on that?
That's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I think it has to be addressed throughout the regular medical industry. So there are pain clinics who are proponents of using cannabis as a medicine to help people get off of opioids, and they don't have that same sort of contractual requirement where you're signing a paper basically saying that you won't use any other drugs. And so my first recommendation would be to get to a different pain clinic where you can get treated more humanely, honestly.
And certainly tons of people have jobs, particularly in this region, where they have to get drug tested.
Also a problem, and it hasn't been tested yet in this state, and so I'm not sure what will happen. I know people that in our area that are federally employed, they've really got a problem. Other state organizations or even companies should be understanding about this, just like they would if someone was on an opioid.
Email question: are medical marijuana products, and I know you prefer medical cannabis, sold with a listing of side effects, and if not, why not? And that sort of gets to the kind of perception of a seat of the pants clinic aspect of this, because it's new, it's not coming from a big name pharmaceutical company.
Right. So certainly when somebody comes to our dispensary, we have a discussion with them about what they can expect and what may happen. We actually have a sheet that we prepared that goes through what to do to cut down on potential side effects. Side effect profile for cannabis is pretty low, honestly, compared to pharmaceuticals for sure. Everybody reacts differently to it, so it's kind of hard to predict what will happen to somebody. And lots of times what someone may consider a side effect is actually an expected effect of cannabis, and it's something to get used to or work through. And then lastly, I'd probably say that the way that we work in starting with really low doses also drastically cuts down the potential for that.
Your background's in pharmacy?
I'm a pharmacist, yeah.
What got you into the dispensary business?
This guy. I've been working in the herbal nutritional world for a long time, and see cannabis as another tool to add to the toolbox. I don't think it's necessarily the medicine for everybody, but it happens to be a very powerful tool that can be very helpful for people.
Michael, where are we heading with this? Is Maryland going to go to full legalization at some point? If we don't, how big does your business potentially get?
Well, I think that for now, Maryland's focused on the right thing, which is to create the preeminent industry in the country. When you think about the assets we have with Maryland and Hopkins and MedStar and LifeBridge, we've got 4 great medical institutions that all do research. And they are at different degrees beginning to embrace how they can collaborate with the industry. When you think about why there aren't side effects, for example, that are well known, 96% of what the government funded up until recently has been negative research on cannabis, not positive. So companies like ours are funding positive research. We're about to do a 480-person study with a sleep product. And so we believe that cannabis under proper manufacture and proper calibration could be a very effective product. And so there's other companies like ours who are now beginning to bring modern pharmaceutical research techniques to this miracle plant.
We have to leave it there. Michael and Brian, thank you very much. Curio Wellness, thank you for joining us for Direct Connection, and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.